So I don't know how many places you ever look for architectural advice, like how are we going to construct something or build something or make it better. If you are a DIYer, I really encourage you not necessarily to look in the Bible because there's not that much advice there. Go to Home Depot. Somebody there may help you. But that didn't stop the rabbis. They actually gave home building advice, which of course was understood by later commentators to have something much more significant. Because what in the world is a parapet? What does that even mean? When the Bible tells us when you build a new home, you shall make a parapet for your roof so that you don't bring blood guilt on your house for if anyone should fall from it. So in case you're Googling right now on your phones, which you are all not because you are all actively listening to the sermon, it's that little bizarro fence around a flat roof. And in the time when this was most likely written, early First Temple period, they would build flat roofs and you might even sleep out on top of the roof at night. Makes sense because it's hot, very hot in the desert area. Which, okay, that's fine. Flat roofs were in fact then became common gathering places, and of course, in a way it makes sense. What would happen if somebody were imbibing a little too much Manischewitz? You may in fact want the parapet there, just on the safe side. But the rabbinic commentators really understood this not to necessarily be even a reference to the actual housing structure at all. They understood it to have another meaning, a more profound meaning, a meaning that pertains to responsibility. Moses Maimonides kind of unpacked this when he thought that the symbol of building a parapet was in fact to have a broader responsibility. It's about preventing physical danger to somebody else. It's about creating in his mind an environment that is safe and secure so that everybody around us cannot be harmed. It's about addressing problems in construction and homes, and I'm sure for our zoning and planning person, that makes total sense. You want to make sure that you address it ahead of time so that, I don't know, people don't get accidentally electrocuted when they turn on a switch. But it wasn't enough to talk about prevention of physical problems. Maimonides implies in his commentary that it's not just about physically injuring somebody else. It's about whether somebody gets emotionally or spiritually injured as well. And it begs the question, to what extent do we have a responsibility to build parapets around structures in our own life? If we understand structures to be the sphere of influence we have beyond ourselves, the types of relationships that we're making with friends, families, and even the cashier at Publix, are we offering up parapets to and acting as safeguards to protect those who we interact with? It's easy to forget the powerful of actions or even inactions when we neglect a parapet or a safeguard by being careless of and ignoring the needs of others. It's easy to fail to live up to our ethical obligations of being responsible one for the other, and recognizing that in failing to live up to those obligations, the person who we failed is going to have a deep sense of rejection, even if it was unintentional. Pirkei Avot offers yet one more push in this context. The sages taught us to be careful with our words, lest you incur the penalty of exile and be carried off to place of evil waters, and the disciples who follow you drink and die, and so forth. You kind of get the idea. But the influence and the part that rings true, I think, is to be careful with our words, to be kind with our tone, to even be cognizant of our body language. After all, we don't just speak in words. That's why people get all upset and anxious by looking at Twitter feeds. It's a very scary place, by the way. Don't go there right now, just warning you. But it brings to light even more something of asking a deeper question. If it's not just how we're influencing our sphere within interpersonal relationships, it's also asking how are we ensuring safety and security for those within our community. Mishneh Torah, Moses Maimonides, even describes the obligations that landlords have in a landlord-tenant relationship. And he cites this very verse from the Torah that the landlord must maintain the structural integrity of doors, windows, ceilings, all of the things. Essentially what he's saying is that we're responsible for everybody in our sphere. In our communities, this holds true all the more so. It's not just the responsibility of somebody to stand up and say, act responsible. It's our obligation as Jewish leaders and frankly as individual Jews to build ethical and moral parapets wherever we go, ensuring that we play a central role in the safety and therefore sanctity of the community, whether it's by advocating for fair housing, supporting the vulnerable, being mindful of our neighbors, or being simply a good neighbor to those around us. We build a parapet. In an interesting flip of all of the things, I'll remind you of a wonderful story that comes from the Midrash. Again, this is a medieval story, but it warns at the dangers of not doing this. And here Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai offers this wonderful idea of a man on a ship drilling a hole underneath his neighbor. What's the problem? It's easy. His neighbor is drowning, they're in the same ship. We all drown, they all drown. The story reminds us that our actions, even when they may seem private, whether it's if we're drilling a hole under our own seat, maybe we have our own negative view on whatever it is, or our neighbor's seat, impact everybody around us. We are all interconnected. We make choices of how we treat others, how we engage with others, how we engage with the environment. And you know what? They have far-reaching consequences. We can take care of each other and guarantee that we are not going to drill holes underneath our own individual seats or therefore the seats of somebody else. The law of building a parapet on our roof is about a responsibility toward myself and toward my neighbors. Rabbi Shira Fisher points out it's more than just a warning to improve building codes or address practical safety concerns. Rather, it's a metaphor for the 21st century. Our Torah's ethical and moral teachings, like the ones found in this week's portion, serve as parapet safeguards to help us avoid falling into hatred, falling into selfishness, or falling into indifference. When we look around the world around us, a world rife with division, derision, and people, well, frankly, focusing on themselves. I don't know if you've ever gone walking down the street and literally been walked into by somebody who was futzy-putzing on their phone. It reminds us that we have an obligation to be present for everyone, that our actions do, in fact, have meaning beyond our very selves. So I ask you, what kind of parapets are you building? Are they full of kindness? Are you ensuring that our words and deeds are kind? Are you focused on justice? Are you advocating for those who are in need of advocacy? Are you building a parapet of empathy to make sure that our homes and places of work and community are safe spaces? I suggest as we continue through the month of Elul that maybe we all have a DIY project of building some parapets to guarantee that not just our lives, but the lives of those around us are full of safety, security, therefore emulating and giving out kindness. Shabbat Shalom.